Hello and welcome to the Brian Ramacco podcast. I have with me today a William person. Would you prefer Will or William?
Oh, either one. I
Either
go by
one.
both.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Will here is a previous Team USA Bobsledder. He was on the team, I believe, for 9 years, and he's with us today to talk about a particular type of brain injury, a brain pathology. So hello and welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on, like a real pleasure to have you on. And I really, truly believe in what you're here to talk about today. So, but maybe first I'll let you sort of introduce yourself and how you came to be involved with brain trauma.
Well, um, I became, I guess the best way to explain it is I earned it. I earned it. I'm not here. I'm selfish. I'm a little bit selfish. I'm here because I was forced here. When I left the sport, man, the red flags and the side effects just kicked my butt. And I didn't know what it was. And a lot of my teammates didn't know what it was. And I come to find out, one by one, there was a suicide over here. There was a suicide over there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
There was people developing Parkinson's. I
mm-hmm,
found the ALS. I think there's three Parkinson's that I found: strokes, seizures, things like that.
mm-hmm.
And for me, I thought I was becoming diabetic. I was like, it didn't get me. I said, I'm fine. It didn't get me. It's just I'm diabetic. That's what that must be. But the doctors were checking me for 10 years, telling me, young man, you are not diabetic. And I was like, what I can't explain is these bouts of no energy. I can't get out of the bed. I'm cloudy. I'm confused. I'm lost in my own neighborhood. I mean, there was at one point where I was literally crawling on the floor of my apartment because I took the mattress out of the bedroom, put it in the living room on the floor because I just I couldn't make it to the restroom or to the kitchen. I was just too far away. So I was crawling like commando style, man.
Oh.
And I guess the part that really brought me in is one of my teammates called me, and he wanted to be a writer, and I just kind of connected the dots about 2 weeks ago. Now this happened before COVID. He wanted to be a writer, so he would call me and give me these ideas about writing a script, and I would tell him how to tweak it and make it better, and I thought he was doing some creative writing, but now that I'm thinking back, his stories were so weird and bizarre. His mind was already gone. And so the very last time he called me, he was speaking gibberish. Like, I don't know what language he was talking, going la 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 la, And I couldn't understand him. So I was like, man, I was just kept trying to get him to say it again. But he got so frustrated, he hung up the phone on me. And I told myself every day, I got to get him some help. And my thing is, my background was mental health. I used to own a treatment facility for kids,
Oh.
for adolescents. Yeah, it's like inpatient. They lived in my program, and I ran big programs. Mental health. I worked for like some of the celebrity rehabs in Los Angeles, and that was my background. So I was like, I can help this guy, and I told myself every day to get him some help. And the truth was, I didn't do anything. I didn't make an honest effort, and and so when I got the word that he went to his family's factory and hung himself, like the guilt for
Mm.
me was just, it was awful, man. I felt responsible. So they had a memorial phone call where all the athletes had on the phone. I didn't get on that call because I was ashamed, you know. But the truth was, later on, I found out he was in stage 4 of CTE.
Hmm.
Stage 4.
Yeah.
They said it was one of the worst cases they've ever seen, from what I understand, and like worse than NFL guys. And I guess that kind of gave me a little bit of relief knowing that I didn't turn my back on my buddy. But the truth was, like, I really realized I couldn't help him because I was literally crawling around on the floor of my own apartment. How could I help somebody else? And so that's what brought me here. So once I kind of they checked him, we knew it was CTE. Now I know what's wrong with me
Hmm.
because there was an article, yeah, that came out by the New York Times that kind of helped define everything.
Yeah, maybe I'll just jump in here and I'll just talk about the condition a little bit more. So
Yeah,
it's connected with repeated, blows to the head again and again. Not necessarily big ones, but just repetitive ones is what's connected with. So something like a bobsledder, back and
yeah,
forth. But
yeah,
it's connected with so many sports. It is connected with well, the best way of diagnosing it is after someone's dead, where they can actually cut open the brain. So not only is the brain lighter, but they see changes in the quality of the brain tissue, and they see an abnormal amount of tau proteins, and tau proteins is
Yeah.
associated with Alzheimer's disease and dementia. And there are four, as you alluded to, there are four stages or four levels of CTE. And the first stage is very similar to concussion syndrome or post-concussion syndrome, almost the first two stages are similar to just a normal concussion. Normal concussions are pretty
Yeah.
bad, uh, and normal post-concussion syndrome. About 15% of people who get a concussion will have long-term symptoms. I'm currently suffering with long-term concussion symptoms from a concussion 9 months ago. And just
Wow.
reading some of the symptoms for the audience here, first level, you have confusion, disorientation, dizziness, headaches. Second level, memory loss, mood changes like personality changes, social instability, impulsive behavior, poor judgment. Third and fourth, you have dementia, speech deformities and difficulties, swallowing difficulties sometimes, difficulty moving, walking, as you've described. And of
Yeah.
course, connected with all of these is depression and suicide. Now, there are advances in imaging. They can sort of infer what's going on. They're getting better at it. 5, 10 years ago, they would have said, yeah, there's no way of diagnosing this. But with brain imaging, PET scans, positron emission tomography, they can look for the tau proteins. With the MRI and CT, they can look for subtle structure changes and functional MRI changes in how the brain works. So they are getting better at diagnosing these. But these things are silent. Same thing with post-concussion syndrome, right? No one knows what you're going through. You look perfectly fine and fit and
Yeah.
healthy, and you're mentally sound. You sound mentally sound now. So people are like, oh, this guy's fine.
Yeah.
And I sound mentally sound, so we're fine. There's nothing wrong with us. We look fine, we seem fine, but the struggles, like it's an invisible struggle. The symptoms can be totally invisible until they're obvious and unavoidable, and the person's committing suicide, right?
Well, one thing that I learned is it was never really invisible.
Okay.
It's just I was misdiagnosing the red flags.
Mm.
So the red flags, there were some there already. For example, let me give you. When I first left Team USA, I moved back, moved to Los Angeles, and so sometimes people ask you, how old are you? I was, I won my last U.S. National Championship in 2007. I was 36 that year. I turned 37 later that summer. So I was 36, 37 years old. So when people asked me how old I was stuck in a loop. Automatically go 28. And then
Mm.
I'm walking away and I've been thinking, wait a minute, I'm not 28. Like, you know, so that was one of the red flags.
Hmm.
And then there was times like we'd be in hotels or I would have a panic attack. Like, I don't know where I'm at. So I'll jump up, run, turn the light on. And I had to look at the pictures on the wall. Like, then I'll know kind of where I'm at. Like, of course, in Europe, they got certain type of pictures. And you get back to the Olympic Training Center, they have different pictures. Or at home, I recognize the walls. So then I'll calm down. I know where I'm at. No big deal. But I rationalized it. I was like, you know what? I travel so much. I have such a great life that I don't know where I'm at because I'm always on the road. And so it was so easy to just kind of put that little band-aid on it and just kind of slide it away because no, it's nothing wrong with me. I'm just, living a
Hmm.
great life.
Hmm.
And I think the biggest red flag, I hadn't seen some of my friends in a while. So I was back in, I believe, in Salt Lake City or something. And my buddy was like, hey, man, look at your ex-girlfriend over there. I was like, I don't know that girl. So she's pretty, but I don't know her. And then she ran over and jumped in my arms. And I was like, oh, I guess I do know her, you know. But as athletes, sometimes we think we're God's gift to women. We think we're the new shiny diamond. But the truth was, so I rationalized it.
Hmm. Hmm.
But the truth was, I wasn't recognizing faces and names anymore,
Hmm.
and I was still competing at that time. So it just all went over my head because this can't be happening to me. Like, no, yeah. And then a lot of the symptoms, it's so easy to, they look like other stuff.
Yeah. And actually,
They look like
that's
other
one of the
stuff.
points I was going to get to next. Is well, I'm a diagnosis specialist and functional medicine and musculoskeletal problems, and there's so many things that vague mental symptoms could indicate. Could be an odd fungal infection. Could be um, a viral infection of some sort. Could have some sort of, everyone has different genetics. Maybe this person can't process a type of vitamin, and it's a particular vitamin deficiency linked to a genetic mutation. So
Yeah.
there are things to explore that don't directly relate to the brain.
Wow. I didn't know it was that many more, but yeah, that's even worse. Like for me, I thought all of my symptoms were related to diabetes because I've
Hmm.
seen that before. I've seen people not, they're just not coherent, they're confused. Then they give them some orange juice and they pick up. I was living like that.
Yeah.
So, but I was so far from the truth. Yeah.
And we're going to talk about a particular type of treatment, right?
Yes. Absolutely.
So I've found with again me treating mostly post concussion rather than CTE, which is basically just like one concussion or two concussions rather than this repetitive issues. And I've found that treating, particularly around the neck, treating around the cranium, can help. And the theory is it helps with lymph flow, helps with blood flow, and can help with the healing process. And I've seen remarkable results. But I hate that the treatment itself has been discredited because there's chiropractors out there claiming it does things it doesn't.
Gotcha.
So because there's chiropractors out there making these ridiculous claims, now you have medical doctors saying, "No, I don't want to touch that treatment," because chiropractors say they're actually moving the bones of the skull. But the bones of the
Oh,
skull are those types of joints are solid joints. They're fibrous joints. They're non-mobile joints, and not only are they fibrous joints, but they ossify. They actually turn into bone over time. When it happens in the 20s and 30s. So a chiropractor saying, "I'm going to," like claiming they're going to move the bones of the skull and uh, give you an all natural facelift and saying things like that. Obviously, doctors, I don't want to touch that.
yeah.
But if you look at it as a soft tissue treatment to the skull itself, and the skull is actually quite flexible. I'll tell you, I do this treatment, and you can feel the skull flex.
Wow.
So I'll work on someone, and I'll check sort of symmetry, and I'll be like, "Oh wow, this part of your skull is actually sticking out," and I'll push, and it'll be like, "Oh wow, I can breathe better.
Wow.
I can feel." I didn't mention it, but I've had like this postnasal drip for ever since the injury. I can breathe better, and oh, my head is starting to clear. And
Yeah.
so you can
Wow. I had no
feel
idea.
the muscles and scar tissue around, basically around the head, and muscle spasm. Our skull is surrounded by muscle basically, and so you can exert this pressure and basically stretch and squish the skull into. So I understand why chiropractors said, "Oh, we're moving the bones of the skull." I because you can feel it move.
Wow.
But then their explanation didn't make sense, which is why the treatment was sort of discredited. But of course, it doesn't work on everybody, and it has limited effect. There are medications out there to help with CTE and post concussion, so you can seek out and experiment with types of medications. Always caution the use of antidepressants, although that is one of the go-tos because they're trying to avoid the big bad suicides.
Yeah.
But particularly SSRIs. I always feel bad when I mention this, but SSRIs aren't any better than placebos.
SSRI. What is that?
So SSRI is the main category of antidepressant,
Okay.
and it used to be thought that being depressed is just a lack of serotonin, and so
Yeah.
okay, we just need more serotonin in the brain, and that fixes everything. That should fix everything. But the body and the brain it's set up for balance.
Right.
So what happens is within a few days of taking a drug that increases the amount of serotonin, and there's different ways of increasing the amount of serotonin. SSRI stands for selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. It keeps your body from reabsorbing the serotonin. So it just floats out there and can interact with the neurotransmitter, again and again and again and again, because it just floats because your body doesn't clean it up. But almost right away, your brain is like, wait a second, there's too much serotonin floating around. So your body's like, I'm just going to produce less.
Yeah, shut down your own natural. Okay, that
Yeah,
makes sense.
which is
Yeah.
why it's difficult to come off of basically brain related drugs, because your brain adapts so quickly. Now, in this sudden shift, some people think it does work for some people, because in this sudden brain shift, that might help jog your mood enough that your brain wants to produce more serotonin, wants you to be happier. Because that's it. The brain wants to be depressed, and so it will adapt to the serotonin so that the end result is still what it wants at the
Wow.
end of the day. This, so sometimes if it can undercompensate, in which case people take the drugs and feel happier. It can overcompensate, in which case one of the side effects of taking an SRI is suicide and super depression.
Yes. Yes.
So
Where does Zoloft fit in there at?
I believe Zoloft is an SSRI.
That's the only pill they ever tried with me.
Yeah,
And I tell you what, I took it for a while and it wasn't working. And they said you gotta let it build up in your system. And I guess I used to be a counselor, so I
yeah,
know. So I make sure I took it for a while. My thing seemed worse. Like
yeah,
everything was worse. And eventually I was like, you know what? If I take one more of these pills, I'm not going to make it another day.
yeah,
I
yeah,
was better off when I was just, not take, yeah.
yeah. So this is another great message we're getting out here today. Is that like, and I've taken one as well, and all it did for me was make me like really angry,
Yeah.
and it really upset my like intestinal system, like really, really.
Wow. I started having intestinal problems about that time too. That makes sense.
Yeah. Well, the
I
intestinal
wonder.
system runs on serotonin as well. So if you affect one system, if it affects serotonin your whole body. So
Wow. I had no idea.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
That makes perfect sense.
um, not to tell people not to try it,
Yeah.
but when they compare it with a placebo, they're comparable for the vast majority of cases. So the vast majority of studies have found there's no difference between placebo and so a sugar pill, fake pill. But a fake
Yeah.
pill has a statistically significant positive effect. If you take a pill and
Wow.
you're told this pill is going to help you, it makes a difference. People do
Yeah.
help. It does help with depression. But obviously, a placebo has no negative or fewer negative side effects. So I often recommend St. John's wort is a
Okay.
very, very mild natural serotonin booster, and has very, very few side effects. And of course, compared head to head with an SSRI, actually, I think the SSRI it was compared with was Zoloft. It
Hmm.
performed the same.
Wow.
And you can pick up St. John's wort basically at a pharmacy. It's just a natural botanical, like curcumin. You can just pick up a bottle off the shelf, and you can start it and get off of it. There's no withdrawal, or as far as people tell, there's little to no withdrawal side effects as well, because it's a very mild. If you look at the chemical structure, it is a mild. It does have a mild serotonin effect to it, but it obviously doesn't have those bad side effects of the SSRIs, but possibly the same benefit. And of course, what works better is exercise and counseling. And what works, again, if you're going to do drugs, what works better than drugs? Drugs and exercise and drugs and counseling.
I tell you what, if you get to the point where I was, see, I'm a little bit different though. Like, I know you said you had like one or two concussions, right? A small
Yeah,
amount, right?
yeah,
So imagine me, like, what I know now is every time we went down that track, there was two types of concussions you can get. You're going to get that one where, you know, you could be knocked unconscious, or you get the micro concussions, the little sub ones they talk about,
Mhm.
which is you still get you don't get the bad side effects with it, but it's still you sh- but it's still doing the damage, you
Yeah.
know. So it doesn't make you sit down because you can still keep moving and going.
Yeah.
So imagine for me, I took between 1 to 6 rides of bobsled rides per day, and I did that. Sometimes it was 1 or 2 rides, sometimes it was six. One time we did seven. And so to do that, I did that 4 days a week, probably 4 to 5 months of the year for 9 years. So I literally have hundreds of trips. And so now what I know, every time I went down that track, I was getting probably a sub concussion.
Hmm.
I've crashed that sled 7 times. I've been in 7 crashes. So you just pile them all together, and it took me 20 years to find any type of help because I didn't know, because when you deal with this stuff, they always tell you the same thing: go back to the hotel or go back to the Olympic Training Center and just don't go to sleep. That was a therapy. Just don't go to sleep. It's the only injury you can ever get where they tell you don't do anything. And so by the time I found help, it was 2022, 20 years later. And like it's been a blessing. It's been definitely a blessing. We're using the hyperbaric oxygen,
Yeah. And that's what we're
but
going to get to. But you mentioned
yeah,
the not sleep thing, so I'm going to jump on that. There we go. So,
told you.
so the thing about sleep with concussions and brain injuries is that's what they used to say: don't fall asleep. You, but you need to know why they say not to sleep. A lot of people think, oh, don't sleep or you're going to die. So the thing is, you can't tell if you're going through if your symptoms are getting worse if you're asleep.
Okay.
That's why they tell you not to sleep. But telling you to go to your room alone is the same thing as sleeping, right? Because there's no one there to
Yeah.
tell if your symptoms are getting worse.
Yeah.
So really the advice is don't sleep and or have someone watch over you to see if your symptoms are getting worse, to see if you need an emergency. If your symptoms start to get worse, you have to have an emergency CT check for a brain bleed. That's why they say it. So if you're just going to go to your room and you're going to be alone, you might as well sleep because sleep is actually good for your brain.
Yeah.
So sleep is
Yeah.
good for you, but then if you're asleep, you can't tell whether if your symptoms are getting worse.
Well, I got one worse than that. My very first World Cup, very first bobsleigh crash was doing World Cup in St. Moritz, Switzerland. Now, this day I was actually sitting in the number 3 spot. I'm normally all the way on the back. I'm using the brake pin all the way in the back.
Mm.
But on this day, I was riding number 3. So we had a crash, really nasty crash. The guy sitting behind me was knocked unconscious. I had vertigo for about probably about a week or so. Like as soon as I sat up in the bed, the room was spinning. And the thing was, they sent us both back to the hotel. We used my roommate, and they told us don't go to sleep. So who was supposed to watch you? The guy who was already knocked unconscious, or me, the guy who has vertigo, who can't sit up in the bed and look at anything,
Yeah,
or I'm going to puke.
that defeats the purpose. How
Like
are you supposed to check anything?
exactly. But that's what happened to all the Olympic athletes. Like there was no like. I'm in court with them right now, just making them put things in place for safety.
Yeah.
Like first of all, number one, warning athletes before they start the sport. They refuse to do it before. Now forcing them to do it.
Hmm.
But I still don't like the way they're doing it. They're saying you can get a concussion, but they're not telling them what a concussion really means. Like I knew I had a concussion, but I didn't know in 7 years I was going to get lost in my neighborhood. I'm going to be crawling around on my floor. All of my teammates are going to start to commit suicide. They don't tell you what that really means. So
Hmm.
that's really what my agenda is right now, just awareness and transparency. So if somebody decides to do the sport, yeah, they know what they're getting into. And more importantly, if those symptoms start kicking in, they already know what they are
Hmm.
and they can
Hmm.
get some help. Yeah.
And let's get to this hyperbaric oxygen therapy because so what I know from it so far, coming from more of the chronic pain side, because that's the book I have done, is with fibromyalgia.
Oh yeah.
And it doesn't help everybody, but there is a subset of people with fibromyalgia, which is connected with central sensitization, basically brain changes that increase sensitivity to pain. where your brain can actually create pain out of fear of pain. The
Wow.
movement receptors can report as pain because your brain is trying to protect the body, but it's overzealous. And so it results in brain changes. And they have found that some people with functional MRI studies, it seems to actually change parts of those brains
Yeah.
when they go for hyperbaric oxygen therapy. So there's a subset with benefit, and they see brain changes. Looking up today, systematic review 2022, traumatic brain injuries. They found there's actually a class A recommendation for hyperbaric oxygen therapy at 1.5 atmospheres, a particular pressure setting. They did studies with lower pressure, they did studies with higher pressure, and they found that there's sort of a sweet spot. Now, there's some caveats to the results. Small sample sizes. They were checking for short-term benefit, not long-term benefit. And always when you're considering research, now systematic reviews are better because it's collecting results. But if you just Google and picked one of the papers, let's say at the lower pressure, there was one research study with positive effects and one research study with negative effects.
Hmm.
So like you average it and it's like no effect. Okay, so we're not going to use
Yeah.
the lower therapy. So always be cautious with looking for research. I always remind my audience, look if you're going to look at research, always add into your search term meta-analysis or systematic review or narrative review. So something that collects all the research together, so you don't just see one single research study. Because once you could see the first research study with a positive effect, and there could be 20 more studies with a negative effect or no effect. And so
That's
always,
what I did.
yeah.
Yeah.
Aside from what I've just said, I don't know much about hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and maybe describe it for our audience too.
Well, I'm gonna. Wait a minute. Do you want the PG version, or you want the rated R version? Which you're a doctor, so I'll give it to you however you want it. You know your
I think we have
audience.
the mature audience. We can have the rated R version.
Okay. I haven't really talked about this in public before. I think I might have mentioned it once, but okay, I went and tried it. Like how I found out about it, kind of like you said, I heard one person talk about it. It was Joe Namath, and he said it reversed his CTE symptoms, but he didn't say what his symptoms were. He didn't say what it helped. He just said it helped him. And at that point, like the doctors had kind of turned their back on me. I couldn't get an appointment with a neurologist to save my life. They're telling me, well, your teammate died from this. We think it's this. Don't come here. We can't help you. So what I did is I went to this place. They let me try hyperbaric oxygen. So I go into the chamber. I'm in there for about an hour. And when I come out, I sit down and my glasses. This is my first interview I've ever done without glasses because I'm sensitive to light. So my glasses are really kind of have a slight tint to them.
Mm.
So um, I go to put my glasses on and I take them off, put them on, take them off a few times, and this salesman there, he's like, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Well, I don't think I need my glasses right now." And he's like, "Oh, you one of those?" And I'm like, "Okay, he's going to try to sell me this $25,000 machine right here that I can't afford. I just bought a house. I can't buy this too, you know." But he's right. Some people get immediate relief, and some people get they need like 40, 50 sessions within 30 days. And so for me, I went home that night. Well, first of all, I could see colors again. The skies were so blue when I came out
Mm-hmm.
that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, I felt I was in a new dimension. So I went home and I fell asleep on the couch. I fell asleep on the couch about 7 o'clock. I wake up at 9 o'clock with one of my migraines. I hadn't had one in a while. And I'm thinking like, oh my God, I might have did something wrong because I'm hurting. Like this migraine is kicking my butt. But but I also had an erection. Migraines and erections don't go together. I'm like, something is happening.
Mm-hmm.
So that was at midnight when I woke up. I went to sleep, went to get in the bed. I woke up at about 8 in the morning. Erection is still there. That migraine is going down. And I didn't know what to think of it. But slowly over the next few hours, headache was gone and my clouds were gone. I was cloudy for years. Cloudiness was gone for
Mm-hmm.
6 days. I went back the second week. This time it removed all my symptoms for 9 days. So
Mm-hmm.
then I bought one, I have one in my back room now. So I started out doing like 5 days a week. Now I just do maybe 3, 4 days a week. But my only problem is like if I go away from it for more than like say about a month or so, my cloudiness will start to come back a little bit. Like
Hmm.
I'll have some setbacks on it. So I'm a little bit tied to that machine. I don't know if it's because I'm using a lower pressure or it's because I had 20 or 9 years of concussions, never treated, and I just didn't do anything for it for 20 years. So I don't really know yet. My book is still being written, but
Yeah.
I can talk now and I can do math again, And like I said, 2 years ago, we couldn't have had this talk.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now,
And
I always caution people because there's so many. I don't want to say necessarily scammers because they are helping people, but they're also pushy salespeople, and they're running a
yeah,
business.
yeah.
And I'll mention chiropractors again. Somehow, every single person needs regular chiropractic care, and every single problem. Oh, you need to at least try 20 sessions, 12 sessions, 20 sessions. Yeah, you got to
Oh, yeah,
try.
yeah.
But I'll tell you, with most treatments, you should feel an effect in a session or two. So
Yeah.
I caution people against buying these huge treatment session things, and I always try to get people with the goal of getting away from a type of treatment, without getting reliant on that type of treatment. And it could be reliant on physiotherapy, reliant on massages, reliant on acupuncture, reliant on those chiropractic visits. And that
Yeah.
should always be the goal. The chiropractor should be trying to put themselves out of business. Same thing with the physiotherapist. Um,
Yeah.
but sometimes, depending on what damage has been done, our bodies have huge capacity for healing, but there's sometimes a limit to what we can do. I'll pick on diabetes. I actually also have a half-written diabetes book. Oh, I need to focus. It's been 48 days since I worked on it. But every time I sit down, I'm like, I don't think I have the brain capacity to work on it. But I'm so close to
Yes.
finishing it. Now, diabetes is quite reversible. In the early stages, they find it's reversible or put in remission within the first maybe 5 years of having diabetes. Because the longer you have diabetes, the more of your pancreas basically dies,
Shut down. Yeah.
and it shuts down. Now it can shut down, and then it can sort of wake up. The cells can sort of go dormant, but it can also shut down and die, like suicide.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so those cells, like the pancreas, actually become smaller. Like the mass of the cells actually decreases as the cells, suicide, apoptosis, and they don't
Wow.
come back. So your ability to come back to completely gain off the drugs, completely gain off metformin and things like that, being able to eat what you did as a teenager, it just might not happen again because your body has changed too much in that negative direction that you are sort of attached to either a stricter diet and or some level of medication. As things go on, so you might be a bit tethered to the machine to feel your best, and
Yeah.
might be the way it's not everyone can afford a machine, or even
Yeah.
to test out a treatment like that, right?
Yeah.
Which leads
Well,
into
that's also one of the reasons why I want to do it. Yeah.
yeah.
I, yeah.
But yeah, it leads into one of the reasons we're talking today is you're trying to get the message out there. Is you are setting up a way for people to get treatments, and will be a GoFundMe link in the description of this video or podcast. Right? Do you want to
Yeah.
give details about what you have planned?
Yeah. Actually, it's very simple. I want to repeat what I did. And I have a TikTok channel. I'm sorry, TikTok channel, all dedicated toward living with post concussion CTE symptoms.
Mm.
Because when I learned about it, like when I was going through it, there was no information out there. I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
find anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess eventually I found the Joe Namath stuff, and which led me down that rabbit hole. And but it's like my goal is to open up this center, allow people to come in and get treatment for free. Like I don't want people making the decisions, life decisions, to not to rather go pay their rent than go get mental health stuff. Because even today there was a young man here who played in the NFL who committed suicide today. He played for his name was Rudy Johnson. He played in for the Cincinnati Bengals. So yeah, my goal is, like I said, open up this place, allow people to come in, get free treatment, and move on with their life.
And also involved in healthcare. Just the for-profit model. If I can do a tiny rant at the end here, as we near the end, um, it really does affect what treatments people can try and experiment with and people's quality of life. Our current healthcare models, and I've worked in a few different countries now, um, and you have things like in the Cayman Islands where insurance dictates treatment.
Yes,
Um,
America too.
yeah, and you almost wish it was uh, cash based or results based, um, because even for myself, I'd love, like, I've bought a couple video games recently, and you buy a video game and you play it a little bit and you're like, wow, this is trash. I just wasted that money. And you buy a video game and then you play it for 80 hours, 100 hours, 1,000 hours. And you're like, this is the best game ever. And from the accountant's point of view of both those companies of both those games, their games are just as good. They sold just the same. But I almost
Yeah,
wish you could play games and then you could give money for what really helped you the most. And sort
yeah,
of results based healthcare. And yeah, I'd love to offer sort of free treatment or pay what you can treatments. Hopefully, when I can get the funds to start my own clinic, that would be my goal. Is pay what you can. If I help you, pay me. If I don't help you, okay, I tried. Keep your
yeah,
money so you feel good about keeping your money. You didn't waste money, um, and uh, and so everyone gets their money's worth.
yeah. I have a lake house, and my original goal was to get the equipment put there, and then allow my teammates to come in and get free treatment.
Mm,
And then I noticed that the military guys had the same issues from being around the compression blast. And then an article came out in December of last year. It was about the fighter pilots. Uh, they have G-force exposure, and they have the same identical problems as the bobsledders. And but the ironic part is, I took some fighter pilots on a bobsled ride like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, and they pull more G forces than bobsled. So I thought. So when we went down that track and when we finished the run, these guys were rattled and shook up. And I'm thinking, man, these are the best we have. These are the best of the best. We have the best military pilots in the world. Like, how could they be rattled from a bobsled ride? I took 6 rides that day. They took one. And they were just like, oh, what was. And so this article came out, once again, written by New York Times. There were spikes of 84.5 Gs in a bobsled compared to 12 in a fighter pilot's space shuttle. Three, like
mhm,
three, only three? What are we doing pulling 84.5? And it makes sense why all the athletes are getting sick.
mhm.
Matter of fact, there's the Canadians. I know about some of the Jamaicans got sick. The Jamaicans, from the movie Cool Runnings.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I heard about some of the German guys. There's an Australian guy who just had an aneurysm and passed about a year ago. So there's so many people just suffering from this condition because nobody's talking about it, number one.
Mhm,
And then when we do talk about it, uh, like there's no treatment. Like if you
mhm.
do the research on CTE, you would just give up before you start because it's gruesome. It's like this person did this, they did that, and it's like how do you know, who am I to beat this? How am I going to beat it? They couldn't even beat it. But I promise you, guys, I couldn't talk. I stopped writing. I was actually optioning TV shows at the time. I stopped writing. I couldn't write anymore. I couldn't read. I couldn't do basic, simple math in my head. And matter of fact, my last two court hearings, I was in front of the judge representing 642 athletes by myself. Me versus all the lawyers, because my lawyers are now teamed up with the other lawyers now. They want to settle this case, but not really help us. And I'm like, no, judge, no. So I'm literally saying no. But that chamber brought me back enough to be able to do these things. And like I tell people all the time, I'm not a doctor. And all my social media is called One Man with a Chamber. I'm one man with a chamber. This is what worked for me. And so I'm just helping guide a lot of people. Like there's been so many people that come to me and who's gotten help now. Uh, and there's a lot of tricks you can do too to help you uh, kind of survive it. Like we're just kind of like, let me give you a good example. I was dating the same girl for probably 5 years. So about 3 months ago, she started screaming at me, "Hey, you're leaving the toilet seat up." So I'll do a new thing and it's always together. I'll leave the toilet seat up for a week. And when I stop doing that, I'll leave the stove on for a week. I'll stop locking the door for a week. So it's not even all, I'm not doing them all at the same time. It's one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a shift in there. And I don't really know why that's happening or why that does happen. But I can kind of know when to start looking out. It's a sensation I have. I can kind of feel it. And I know, okay, I got to get back in that chamber. I know what this is. And, and that's my goal for everybody. You know what that feeling is, you know what to do, and you know how to survive this thing, all the way down to like keeping your keys in the same place because you don't start losing stuff. Keep your wallet in the same place every day. Little things, take your self-care. A lot of people stop self-care when they get that mental health stuff. They stop taking care of themselves. They're just starting to get disheveled, not feeling good, not leaving the house. No, you got to get up and you got to do something every day. Can't give up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And as you started to allude to, there's like this positive spiral, and then there's this negative spiral, and sometimes it's just feeling that little bit better that can then put you on the positive spiral. You start exercising and you start taking care of yourself again. You start maintaining your relationships with people again, and so your quality of life. If your brain feels 20% better, your quality of life could be 100%, 80, 90% better.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be in that negative spiral, which of course leads to suicide and death. You're out there trying to save lives.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like I tell people all the time, like I was begging for death. Like once I knew why my teammates were killing themselves, and I got it, I got it, man. Like I was ready to check out myself. Like I couldn't kill myself. I have a thing that I do. I was a counselor for many years, so I tell people all the time, like if it's a good idea to kill yourself today, it'll be a good idea tomorrow. So you get to tomorrow, you feel that way again. Guess what? Feel that way today. Tomorrow will be a better day to kill yourself. So it always gave me an extra day, and I never got to that point where this is what I taught other people, and it just stuck. I was on cruise control, but I'll be honest, I was praying for death. I was like you mentioned something earlier about pancreas.
Yeah.
Like at one point, I was like, God, if I can just get pancreatic cancer, it'll be over with quick. And I'm gonna suffer for a little bit, but it won't be as long as anything else. I was looking for any way out of this place I can get. But like I said, that chamber showed up, and I didn't think it was gonna work. Nothing else worked. But it was one of those things, man. Like I'm so blessed to have it.
Mm-hmm.
So blessed.
And not every treatment works for everybody, and it's not always the same miraculous effect. But you have to go out there and you have to try treatments. To not accept death, I guess. And having people like you out there trying to help people to give access to some of these treatments, I think you're doing great work. And just to remind the audience, there is a GoFundMe a link down below, so you can help him in his cause. And do you have any sort of final message before we go today?
My last one is, guys, I was in dementia. We know so many older people going through that stuff. I don't know how it brought me out, but this is what worked for me. I was gone, guys. Look at my TikTok channel. Those videos up there, guys. I was out of it. Please make a donation. Share my worst case scenario. Please share it. Send this thing viral. Our Olympic athletes all around the world are suffering, and it's being swept under the rug. Nobody wants to talk about it, or they're not connecting the dots. I don't know which one it is, but too many suicides. There's a death trail here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Will. And thank you for starting this charity and trying to help people out there. You're doing some great work. People would say God's work. And thank you, audience, for listening to us. And hopefully you've learned some things. And if you can, please donate.